Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world today. This is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, or at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter, or Prepper University on YouTube. Take your pick. As well as, of course, Fistful of Radio. That is fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting where? Out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Friday at noon, as we get ready to discuss the news or some of the things that are happening in the world today, whether you knew about it or not. And most of it you probably don't want to know, because the majority of it is pretty bad. Because people are terrible. I don't know what else to say. I prefer animals, cats and dogs. Mostly I have cats. Of course, for those of you who are watching and are joining us on the YouTube portion of this, you can see Dusty sitting in the background there. And for those of you who are listening and not able to watch, naturally, I will funnel through as many of the comments as I can so that you can keep up with the conversation as I go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that are chiming in on the YouTube portion now. I see Helter is here, Dragon, Delo, Monkey, Preparedness Veteran, Cyberjack Senior, Rodney is here all the way from New Zealand. Boogers is here. Running Bear says he's in North Carolina. So far, chiming in again on the YouTube portion of the discussion, I see Rock Valley is here. Thanks for dropping by today, everybody, as we get ready to dive into what's going on. Lot to talk about, as always. I see Cruising is here as well. The handful of people that choose to pop in and say hello as we get ready to dive into all of this and see what's going on. And we open up the news stories. First one coming from somewhere. Hold on a second. Having a little bit of trouble pulling things up. Naturally, the biggest thing in the news currently is what is going on in Israel, which has completely overshadowed the Ukraine. We've been having the Ukraine shoveled down our throat for more than a year, and they've kind of forgotten about that for a while, haven't they? I see Chris has joined us. Running Bear says they're in California. And Armored says, we will live to see the day showing the American flag is hate speech and violates YouTube's terms of service. Will we live to see the day? We already are. There are places where you could have a lot of problems showing the American flag in America, and people will say that it's a violation or it's hurting their feelings. It's crazy. Doc Galt is here. And this first article is from the Business Insider. Excuse me. It says Israeli citizens were tortured, raped, and abused by Hamas fighters, says forensic teams. So there we go. Well, we already kind of knew this because we know the kind of people that they're dealing with. The gruesome task of identifying Israel's dead and the circumstances in which they were killed has fallen to military forensic teams at an army base in central Israel. They have uncovered evidence of torture and rape among the victims of last week's Hamas terrorist attacks on communities surrounding the Gaza Strip. The series of coordinated surprise attacks, dubbed Operation Al-Aqsa, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Aqsa flood by Palestinian militants, killed at least 1,300 Israelis and foreign nationals in Israeli settlements, per the UN Human Rights Office. The majority of casualties were civilians. Well, that was their intention, was to attack soft targets. That's primarily what so-called terrorists tend to do. Most of the bodies have been transported to an army base in Ramla and stored in refrigerated containers. Specialized teams are examining the remains. Reuters reports a reserve warrant officer known by her first name, Abigail, recounted finding maimed bodies per Reuters. Multiple cases of rape were also discovered during forensic examinations. We've seen dismembered bodies with their arms and feet chopped off, people who were beheaded, a child that was beheaded, Abigail told reporters. It follows claims earlier in the week that Hamas decapitated babies in Israel. Captain Mayan, a military dentist involved in the identification process, said he's seen gunshot wounds and clear signs of torture. No photographs or medical records are presented by Israeli military overseeing the process. And again, this comes as no surprise. This is typical of how operations like this go. These types of groups, this is what they do, because it's more about intimidation and humiliation than it is about fighting. It's not a war as most in the West would possibly understand it. And this is what happens. And doesn't surprise me at all. I know people are acting all outraged about it. Those people are living in a box. In the West, the idea of, for example, children being in military service has pretty much been done away with by making it so that under most circumstances you have to be at least 18 years of age to join the military. But that doesn't apply to most other countries where you often see children soldiers. Think about all of the men coming back from the Vietnam War who were traumatized about the fact that they had to kill children. They were killing children because they had 6, 7, 8-year-olds attacking them with firearms. What are you supposed to do? Stand there and get shot? They had to fight back. But these are kids that were trained as soldiers, and you often see that overseas. You often see that in so-called third world countries. And again, this is part of the analogical thought process of a lot of these countries as opposed to the westernized rational logical thought process. To them, this is war. That's what people in the West don't understand, unfortunately. And then, that cascades into the next article here really quickly as we pop that up, something else. And I could totally answer this without even looking at the article and reading through it. This is from The Atlantic. It says what Hamas wants. I'll tell you what Hamas wants. Hamas wants the total genocide of the Israeli people, period. That's what they've always wanted. Again, haven't even read this. And I'll tell you, that's what they've always wanted, is the total genocide of the Israeli people. People don't understand the history of what went on there. They think that Israel was established after World War II. Israel was reestablished. It was probably the third or fourth time that century, in the early part of the 20th century, that they had been set up. The first, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 times, the British government, who was in control, or so they thought, of the Middle East during that time period. Remember, at one point, the British Empire really was the British Empire. They used to say the sun doesn't set on the British Empire. They weren't kidding. They set up Israel, and it was fighting in the streets nonstop, so they carved it up again. And this is, I think, before World War I. I might have my dates screwed up. But they had set it up, and I think it's Jordan. That's where you got Jordan from, because they had to carve it out again to control people, and nobody was there. Nobody was out there. They put Israel back where Israel traditionally was, biblically speaking. No one was out there. They all came because of Israel, because they wanted to disrupt things. And they had to carve it out 2 or 3 times before World War II. And since then, they've lost more and more land over and over and over again. And the people that are in the Gaza are refugees from all over the Middle East that the rest of the Middle East doesn't want. They can't leave Gaza because they get nowhere to go because no one will take them. It's a disaster out there. And basically, Israel's stuck babysitting them, and then this is how they act. Monkey says there's even child soldiers in Africa too. I'm surprised no Western media is going all over that part, of course. And Preparedness says waiting to see if Lebanon joins the party, followed by Iran. And again, you've already heard me talk about this. I'm convinced that Hamas and the Gaza, since no one else in the Middle East wants them or tolerates them anyways, are using them as fodder, much the same way that the Viet Cong were used as fodder by North Korea during the Vietnam War. And they all died to the last man as a result. They were all destroyed in the Tet Offensive. And so I'm waiting to see if Gaza gets eaten alive and Hamas is completely destroyed. And then, of course, like you said, Iran, Lebanon, whoever else, now that they wore themselves out, killing the people in the Gaza that they hate anyways, and I mean Lebanon and Iran, they don't like those people any more than they like Israel. So wear them out, let them burn themselves out, and then we'll show up later. And I wouldn't be surprised. Cruising says to confirm Jordan is the part of old Israel that is east of the Jordan River. Okay. And Flukeman says, stupid question here. Are Jews a race or a way of life? If it's a race, what's the difference to Israeli? It's a religion and an ethnicity, because the ethnicity was tied to the religion. And of course, Jews or Jewish is not correct anyways, because they're Israeli people. So the Jew or Jewish is a reference specifically to individuals that are connected directly to the tribe of Judah. So you would call someone from the tribe of Judah Jewish. If they were from Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, you would call them Benjamites. But there's just a blanket term that's been used primarily by the Catholic Church long enough that all of the Hebrew people now are basically like, yeah, okay, Jewish, we give up, call us Jewish, and they've gotten used to it over time. Yeah, and Erikel says Hebrew, but that nationality has always been tied mostly to a specific religion. Monkey says Lawrence of Arabia was a prominent figure around World War I that was both pro-Zionist and pro-Arabic, with the involvement of militias in that area. Didn't he die on in a motorcycle accident? Just thinking back. Dragon says, if the old story goes, they're dealing with an enemy that wants to die, and those the most dangerous type, and there's not a whole lot of negotiating with them. There's no negotiating, because any negotiation is going to be a lie anyways. They'll pretend to go along. It's like with the 6-Day War. Israel gained a ton of territory during the 6-Day War. They've since that time given it all back to the people they took it from, and then some. And the other parties still complain. They still bitch and complain about it. But anyway, the Atlantic. Let's see what Hamas wants according to the Atlantic. Did Israel avert a Hamas massacre? That was the question posted by the headline of Vanity Fair expose published in October 2014. The investigative report laid out a sophisticated plot by the Islamist terror group to kill and kidnap Israelis on the Gaza border. The plan to use underground tunnels to infiltrate nearby civilian enclaves on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, when the communities would be at their most vulnerable. As one intelligence source put it, the operation had two goals. First, get in and massacre people in the village, put off something they could show on television. Second, the ability to kidnap soldiers and civilians using the tunnels would give them a great bargaining chip. The Israeli Defense Forces subsequently confirmed this, reporting to other media outlets, but not the specific date. The tunnels were real, but at the time the massacre that wasn't received little attention or media coverage, or little additional media coverage. It seemed too cinematic and convenient. Maybe it was a Hamas pipe dream that was never operational, or maybe it was a worst case scenario concocted by the Israeli security services and leaked to the media, blah, blah, blah. Jumping to the next paragraph, I was wrong. Last week, Hamas executed something quite like the attack on the Gaza border that it had planned all those years ago. Instead of tunneling underground on Rosh Hashanah, it invaded above ground on another Jewish holiday, Simchat Torah. Some 1,500 terrorists stormed nearby civilian communities by land, air, and sea. They murdered babies in their cribs, parents in front of the children, and children in front of their parents, burned entire families alive, decapitated and mutilated victims. They wore body cameras and documented the destruction as though it was a video game, executed a grandmother in her home and uploaded the snuff film to her Facebook page. That was really dirty. They deliberately targeted elementary schools, kidnapped toddlers, and a Holocaust survivor, and paraded battered naked women through the streets of Gaza like trophies. So, yeah, what does Hamas want? Obviously, the elimination of the Hebrew people as a nation altogether. They want total genocide. And again, that's what the West doesn't understand, while they keep trying to negotiate peace treaties and two-state solutions and all this other garbage. It'll never work. It will never work because they want the destruction of an entire race of people. Monkey says he did die in a motorcycle accident. Of all things, after all that he went through, it's incredible. Preparedness says T.E. Lawrence died on a motorcycle in Dorset. I used to live near that spot. And Armand says, are Episcopalians the most progressive Christians? I have no idea because, there's estimated. Oh, I'm trying to remember. It sounds insane, but it's estimated that there are some like 3,000, I think, or more splinter groups of Christianity in the Western world. So who knows? Cruising says Hebrews equals all ancient Israelites. Ancient Israel splits into two kingdoms. Northern, 10 tribes, kingdom destroyed by Assyria, and some think its origin of Khazar state. South kingdom was Benjamin and Judah. And Helta says the higher the death count rises, the greater the anger will be among Israelites, and the greater the depth and volume of destruction Israel is going to heap upon the residents of Gaza. And again, they've been babysitting these people for decades because no one else in the Middle East wants them, and they can't go anywhere. Been ordered by their leaders not to go anywhere. Stay there, stay there, stay there. And then again, here this comes. And people, part of the illusion is that they are Palestinians. They're really not. They're not the original Palestinians. And the original Palestinians aren't even the original Palestinians. If I remember correctly, that area wasn't even called Palestine until the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire renamed that district to insult the Hebrew people after, is it the fall of the Second Temple? I don't remember exactly. I think it might be the fall of the Second Temple. They renamed it Palestine to insult the Israelis. So it's not even Palestine in the first place, if you want to go back far enough. Not that it matters. Not that it matters. Again, it's all about the genocide of the people. But hey, it'll be all right. You know why? Because dear old, sweet old, lovable old, fumbling Uncle Joe says he's going to go down there and he'll get it all straight because he fixes everything. He fixes everything. He's infallible. He's the one that convinced Strom Thurmond that integration in the South was a good idea. To hear him talk. You remember that? It's because of him that there's that they got rid of the Jim Crow laws. Oh man, who remembers that one? So he's going to fix it. He hasn't made it to the train wreck yet. He hasn't made it to the border yet. But don't worry, Israel's on the list. Did he go to Hawaii? I don't think he went to Hawaii either, did he? He makes a lot of promises, though. And this comes from Market Watch, and it says, Biden considering trip to Israel in the coming days. Okay. All right, Biden, we're waiting on you. It'll be okay. He's going to help everything. He's going to fix it. President Joe Biden is considering a trip to Israel in the coming days, but nothing has been finalized, a senior administration official said Sunday. The news comes as U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has been traveling around the Mideast this part of the week, trying to prevent the war with Hamas from igniting a broader regional conflict. He can't fix that. Biden has staunchly proclaimed his support for Israel, and the trip there would be a firm sign of U.S. support following the October 7th attack by Hamas. The official could not publicly discuss internal deliberations about the potential presidential travel and spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity. Yet, in an interview with CBS 60 Minutes that aired Sunday, the president warned Israel not to reoccupy Gaza in his strongest public effort to hold Israel back after the attack that killed more than 1,300 people, including at least 30 U.S. citizens. I believe it was 1,500, actually. Quote, I think it'd be a big mistake, Biden said. Look what happened in Gaza. In my view, is Hamas. and the extreme elements of Hamas don't represent all the Palestinian people, and I think it would be a mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza again. Still, he says, taking out extremists is a necessary requirement. Biden and his administration officials have refused to criticize Israel or its bombing campaign that has killed civilians in Gaza. And what's funny about that is he says that Hamas, he's also, I believe he's quoted as saying Hamas should be completely destroyed, but don't go in Gaza. Where do you think you're going to find him, Joe? He won't go to East Palestine, but he wants to go to Palestine in the Middle East. That's kind of funny, but he hasn't gone anywhere. Oh, that's right. That's right. Thank you, Rocksteady or Rock Valley. He said he went to Hawaii and fell asleep. I remember that now. He was having trouble staying conscious. Doc Galt says Joe will send Corn Pop over there. And Preparedness says Biden sent a cardboard cutout. It'll do a better job. Probably. It'll do a better job reading that teleprompter. Helter says Biden has the time to visit to Israel, but couldn't find time all year to go to East Palestine, Ohio. Exactly. Hasn't been there yet. Hasn't been to the border yet. I forgot he went to Hawaii. I forgot about that. Fluke Man says many nations dislike Jews. Is it because many of them emigrated to other nations and the hosts saw them as weirdos, having different ideologies, clothes, hair, etc., even though many of them are white? It's a long story. Many nations dislike Jews. They've been used as fodder for a lot of things. It happened in Spain with the Spanish Inquisition. A lot of it stems from the Catholic Church and their condemnation of Judaizing, because the practices of the Jewish people conflict with the renegotiated rules put forth by the Catholic Church. And that's that stems into a lot of it. For example, the Catholic Church making the edict that the Sabbath is no longer on Saturday and declaring it should be on Sunday. And of course, Hebrew people are not going to acknowledge that, because the Bible says that it's from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. And then the Pope says, well, I'm the Pope and I say it's on Sunday now, and I'm the Christ's vicar on earth and I speak for him until he comes back. And you better do this or else. And there you go. A lot of it, the Catholic Church has created a great deal of that division. And then, of course, with the creation of the Muslim religion in 630 something AD, they also have a great deal of religious conflict between what's in the Bible and what goes on with the Hebrew people. And that goes all the way back to Avraham or Abraham. Avraham, where you had the one child by Sarah and you had the other child by Hagar, the servant girl, when Sarah sent Hagar in to sleep with Abraham because she wanted him to have a son, but then she became pregnant, and then Sarah and Hagar had a problem with each other. Long story short, Hagar was eventually sent away. But in the Muslim perspective, they rewrite that it's the other way around, and that the blessings actually belong to Hagar's son and not Abraham's. So they'll take it all the way back there. But it just creates a lot of static between groups that will not budge on their religious beliefs. Dragon says President Biden, Israel is just west of Chicago. I could fly and be back in the White House in a day. There you go. Monkey says, if Biden does go there, do you think he'll take the opportunity to reenact the Hillary visit to Serbia where she was under fire? Oh, yeah, sure. Well, have you seen the Biden jog? He can or ride his bike. He could ride his bike to get out of the way. And every time he falls down, they can say he was ducking bullets. Armand says kiwi sounds like a hipster coffee drink that costs 35. Eric Peter is here. He says it's like dealing with the Terminator. They can't be bargained with. They can't be reasoned with. How do you fight such an enemy? They have to be completely eliminated. They have to be completely eliminated. And if you're basing it on a religious perspective, I'm sorry, the Muslim religion is the false one. You can get mad at me for saying that, but when did they pop up? And there's a lot of wonky stuff in there if you read it. You think the regular, for those of you who don't believe in anything anyways, you think the regular Bible is weird. Try reading the Quran. It's really wonky. A lot of weird stuff. It sounds like somebody was eating mushrooms. Armored says Hillary wants to reprogram half the country. I bet she does. She wants them to vote for her. She's not. I doubt she would run again. I doubt she could run again. She's already lost twice. I mean, how many times can you lose? Although there is a lot of campaign money to get shuffled around. But yeah, I mean, if you talk to somebody who's true, and I don't mean Americanized Muslim, and I don't mean bow ties and bean pies Muslim, and I will tell you right now in the Middle East, they do not recognize you if you're Muslim in the West, excuse me. They do not recognize you if you're a Muslim in the West. You don't count. Trust me, you are not their friend. You are not on the same page. You're not in the same book. All right. And you can be pro-Palestine if you want, BLM or whoever. They will hate and kill you just as quick as anyone else. They do not understand how it works, and they do not understand that tribalism mentality. And it runs deeper than just the religion. There's a lot more to it. Armin says, do you think Pelosi doesn't leave politics because it's religion to her? Yeah, make that money and gain that power is religion to a lot of people. It's like the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step. Believe in something. It doesn't have to be God. Believe in anything. It could be a coffee cup. And for her, it's the job or the prestige of it, because she certainly doesn't do the job. And that's always my argument. I think all anybody wants of any of these politicians, you don't have to be so prominent. You don't have to be so vocal. You don't have to be on a pedestal. You don't have to be amazing. You don't have to be the first to do something. You don't have to champion every cause. Just do the job. That's all anybody really wants from any of these politicians. And it's the one thing they can't get while they continue to be celebrity politicians instead of politicians that just do the damn job. It's incredible. But yeah, she won't leave. She's not going anywhere. None of them are. None of them are. They're dinosaurs. They were there before there was an office. They built the White House around some of these people. BNN, is that BNN? BNN breaking, talking about the border again, southern border. And I find this really funny, actually. And you know why if you've been listening for the last few weeks, because I brought this up some weeks ago. It says tension simmers on the Texas border or Texan border. CBP apprehends special interest aliens. Special interest aliens. Remember that phrasing? It says the air cracks with tension in the Texan town of Eagle Pass, where the Rio Grande River whispers tales of clandestine crossings and secret rendezvous. They make it sound like a romance novel. In the heart of this border town, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents stand as vigilant sentinels, their eyes scanning the horizon for movement, their hearts pounding with the weight of national security. Actually, no, they don't do that anymore. Now they fill out paperwork because they're not allowed to repatriate anyone. Remember? Since the start of November, the CBP has apprehended 4 men from Iran, a country often linked to terrorism. These men, now labeled as special interest aliens, slipped across the southern border under the cloak of darkness, only to surrender willingly to the agents. Their journey, spanning continents, is shrouded in mystery, and their motives remain as elusive as the night itself. Who wrote this? Bajay Lakshmi. Bajay Lakshmi. or Bijay Lakshmi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'll give them credit. They're a little flowery, but it's a lot better than most of what I read. The term special interest aliens isn't exclusive to Iranians. It encompasses non US citizens who potentially pose a national security risk due to their ties to countries known for promoting or protecting terrorism. Last week, the CBP apprehended 2 Lebanese nationals and an Egyptian man, all wearing the same label. This series of apprehensions, coupled with the recent capture of 19 Iranians and 17 Syrians in the Rio Grande Valley sector, has ignited concerns about potential terrorism threats. Now, the reason that this article is amusing to me, because if you remember, when we were talking about this in the last couple of weeks, because I already brought this up about their so-called special interest aliens moniker, that since the onset of the Biden administration, nearly 74,000 special interest aliens have passed through the border and been released into the United States. So don't make a big deal that you got 4 guys from Lebanon in the last week, like this is brand new. This has been going on for like the last 2 years, to the tune of like, well, I think it was what, 73,822, something weird like that. They had an exact number of so-called special interest aliens that might have a tie to a terrorist group that, because they couldn't find information on them, were released, not repatriated, not locked up, released. They're here. They are here. They are a threat. Absolutely. Why not? Armand says the CDC says doing your job is misinformation somehow. Yeah, do your job. Moki says, hola. Moki is joining us here today. And he wants to see the cat. Well, Dusty is sitting in the chair behind me here. I'll see what I can do. I do have one in here. The rest of them are sleeping all around the house in different places. Rodney says, odd that the U.S. government has been welcoming illegals for years now and claims that they're intercepting a couple of nut bars at the border as if it's going to make a difference. Yeah, it's too late. It's too late to make a difference. They're already here. You can stop them now, but too many have already crossed in. Too many have already crossed in. I hope you know where they are. I hope you can find them. Trump wants to find them. He talked about that. He talked about, again, and we brought this up in recent weeks, that old law, I forget the name of the law, that allows for the rounding up of illegal aliens that could be considered troublesome and ejecting them. And the last time that law was executed was during World War II, when they opened up the internment camps for the Japanese, for Germans, and for Italians, and also used that law to repatriate some of those people who were undocumented back to wherever they came from. Obviously, that would be Germany, Italy, and Japan in that case. But there you go. And Zane has joined us today. And Nature Nerd says, according to Michael Savage, Palestine has been digging tunnels and bunkers for years now. So this battle could be Iwo Jima in World War II. In worst case scenario, even if you level the buildings. Yeah. And they had to, in Vietnam also, with all the tunnels, all the tunnel rats, and they used to send guys down the tunnel with a rope tied around their ankle carrying a sawed-off shotgun. Scary. Or they'd use a flamethrower. I think a flamethrower is a better choice. Personally, I wouldn't want to crawl down there. Helter says, remember when terrorists slipping through the southern border was baseless right-wing conspiracy theory? Well, it's happening. Biden kept his promise. We will let everyone in. Yeah. And it's not a conspiracy theory, but that's why they call it special interest aliens, to try to cover that up so that they could pretend like it was anything but it's not. Zane says, I'm talking to an immigration officer to help me migrate to Chile. And Nature Nerd says, Egypt closing their borders to Palestinian civilians during a real humanitarian crisis. Imagine that in Europe and America. They're all going to close their borders because, remember, again, like I brought up earlier, the people in the Gaza are refugees from all these other countries, from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Iran, from Iraq. They don't want them, and they're not going to take them back. So, yeah, they're as much of a problem for these other countries as they are for Israel, quite frankly. That's the issue. They don't want these people back. Oh, who was it? Moki wanted to see the cat. You want to see Dusty? Are you awake? Come here, baby. Come here, darling. I'll put you back. Here we go. Dusty, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who can see. And she is like amazingly soft. She is like a chinchilla. Softest cat in the world. Maybe not, but hello, darling. I'm sorry I disturbed you. I'm going to put you back in your chair, okay? We had a request for Dusty. There you go. There, cat break. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. Where are we here? Zane says the Chileans don't care. They're very okay with migrants as long as they conform to Chilean culture and society. And that should be how it is. That's how it should be in the United States. That was the whole purpose behind a vetting process to begin with. That was the whole purpose behind the idea of someone petitioning to become a citizen and taking classes and learning the language as best they can and going through a whole citizenship process because you really wanted to be an American and you were going to demonstrate that. Hey, I want to fit in. I want to keep my identity, but I want to fit in. Not what we deal with now in the West, not just in the United States, but all over the Western world, where people just pour in and it's like, yeah, screw you to that country, disrespecting that country. Again, we've got people in the United States at these Palestinian, these pro-Palestinian marches, these little parties that they're throwing. I don't even think you can call it a protest. Burning flags, throwing trash, throwing rocks, screaming death to America. Why are you here unless you're here to destroy us? And Zane said, I'm talking to my potential neighbors in the towns so that when I fully move, I can conform. Yeah, and you want to fit in. If I was going to move to a foreign country and they didn't speak English, I'd want to learn the language. I wouldn't expect them to accommodate me. Most other countries won't tolerate that, except for, unfortunately, Western countries right now. And look what it's doing to them. It's destroying them. It's destroying them, but not in the U.S. In the U.S., they want to take care of you. Take Chicago, for example. Chicago is a great example. And look at this from the Daily Mail. Daily Mail says Chicago is giving $9,000 to migrants to cover their rent and help furnish their apartments as staggering reports reveal a single medical firm raked in $7.2 million. Yes, indeed. Let's just take, oh yeah, come to our country and we're going to put you on a permanent welfare program. Back to the article. Chicago is giving $9,000 in rental assistance to migrants in need of temporary housing after it paid a medical firm a staggering $7.2 million for staffing shelters for just 1 week, according to official records. Oh my goodness, the taxpayers are struggling. Hey, once upon a time, I recall America went to war over taxes. Just saying. The Windy City is struggling with over 11,000 migrants in shelters and 4,000 staying in police stations and the O'Hare International Airport after more than 18,000 have arrived in the city in 1 year. There's more than that there. And they've been starting to put them out of the police stations. We saw an article on that a week ago. The police stations are starting to throw them out. And they were so settled in. For those of you who didn't see that, they were so settled into these places, they were putting furniture out. They were putting out beds, dressers, sofas, chairs, crazy stuff, like they were moving into an apartment, living in the hallways and police stations. To free much-needed room in shelters, the state of Illinois is helping cover costs for temporary housing for migrants, including $9,000 in rental assistance over a 6-month period. Chicago's Deputy Chief of Staff, Christina Passion Zayas told Fox 32. The funds include assistance with moving costs and a starter kit to furnish apartments. Oh my God. Come on. Give me a break. An American going from homelessness to getting back on their feet can't get assistance like this. I mean, good Lord. The city has allocated $4 million to help migrants find temporary housing, and the state has contributed another $38 million. It's unclear how many migrants are currently benefiting from the program. Too damn many. I'll answer that question. That rent lasts for 6 months, and ideally, people would have started their legal process, secured legal work authorization, and be able to sustain that apartment, said Alderman Passion Zayas, if I'm pronouncing that right. I guess the payment toward the landlord is based on market rate. It's based on the configuration of the apartment, and so it varies from place to place. That won't happen. Those people have been getting a free ride the whole time. Now you're going to set them up in an apartment. You're going to create a circumstance with the landlords by which they can't reject these people. They're going to move into apartments. They're going to wreck those apartment buildings. They're going to use up all these funds, not pay rent, and then they're not going to be able to evict them. And then you're going to pay for even more out of taxpayer funding. Back to the article. Meanwhile, a new report has revealed that the Kansas-based company Favorite Healthcare staffing billed the city more than $7.2 million to staff migrant shelters for 2 weeks, as reported by NBC5. Man, I'm in the wrong line of work. The invoices covered 400 employees who worked between April 22nd to May 19th, including one nurse who was paid $20,000 for a single week of work in December. Wow. The same nurse made $16,536 for 7 days of work in April. The city appeared to reduce hourly rates after reports of their December invoices, but the lowest paid staff rates were still $50 an hour, with the most expensive being $156 per hour before their overtime. Ooh wee. My wallet's hurting, and I'm not even in Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson has claimed the hourly rates were meant to cover administrative costs like hotel rooms for out-of-town employees. Chicago has already spent $60 million on staffing shelters, including $1.4 million at former Wadsworth School, $1.6 million at the Inn of Chicago, and $1.2 million at the Social Club's shelter. And the situation is not easing up as buses from Texas continue to arrive. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let me catch up some of these comments here. Monkey said, "Where's my 9,000? I want 9,000. Where's my money? I need it. Hell, I still got a broken tooth. I have not been able to go back to get that root canal yet. And I've got another cat with a broken leg. Give me a break." Helter says, "A starter kit to furnish the apartment. Never did I think it would be said that it's better to be illegal than a citizen. I'm surprised people are not brawling or rioting in the streets. I would not be surprised if we got to that point." Rodney says, "Almost all Western nations are now circling the drain as a direct result of awful policies. Open borders being the most obnoxious. Our so-called leaders are doing exactly what the WEF ordered." Preparedness says, Chicago, insulting to all. Sounds like a corruption factor going on there. Yeah, Monkey says, "Watch the sanctuary cities try to pour these illegals out to rural sides and to other states that don't want them. They are trying to push them into rural areas. Both Illinois and New York have been working on that, trying to offer incentives to small towns. I pray they don't take it, but odds are they eventually will, because the dollar signs will go off in the eyes of the lawmakers in those communities, and they'll burden their own constituents." Flukeman says, "If the current government gives illegals full citizenship, does the next president have the right to deport them?" I'm not sure if they can get around that, if they make them citizens, which has not technically happened. They're giving them work visas, they're doing all sorts of other things, but not actually making them citizens. So unless they are actual citizens, and can claim some kind of a grandfathered status, technically they should be someone with enough coconuts should be able to enact repatriating them all. Fluke Man says if the current government gives, I read that. Dragon says, I wonder if Chicago Denzians will continue to resist and vote blue. The 9,000 handout is an insult to taxpayers. It is. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Elections are coming up eventually. Semper Fi says, afternoon all. Hope everyone is still gathering preps. So do I, because Lord knows, people, you're going to need them. Chris says, I'm going to Mexico, then coming back so I can get the cash. Yeah. Do you speak another language? Pretend to be from another country. Preparedness says, I hear that the city has a $538 million deficit, so how can this $9,000 be afforded? It can't be afforded. And all they can do is keep wasting taxpayer funds, keep diverting money from the lottery, keep diverting money from the tolls, because there's toll booths all over the damn place in Illinois. It can be expensive passing through that state. If you're going in or out of that state or passing through, it can get real expensive. But, and again, going back to when I used to live in Illinois, they were suspended by the lottery commission for some months. They weren't allowed to, you couldn't buy a lottery ticket, not a scratch ticket, but playing numbers games in Illinois because of that, because the people who were the winners were not getting their pay. They weren't getting their checks. They weren't getting their direct deposits. And so they were under investigation by the lottery commission until at such time they started paying these people again. And they didn't have that money because it was diverted to the highway commission because the money from the tolls had been diverted to something else. And I forget where that money was. It's like they're borrowing from each other, raising taxes all the time. And it's just completely corrupt. It's completely corrupt. And Picardo is here. Or is it Pica Cairo or Pica Cario? Pica Cario? I'll figure it out. He says he's in Nevada. Hope everything's going all right in Nevada. Oh yeah, they're striking in Nevada, aren't they? All of the service workers. Preparedness says at least Russia remains patriotic. Indeed. He says the last one. Pica Cario says it's the last one. Okay. I knew I'd figure it out. But this is an absolute insult. And also that, again, without negotiating, that they're paying this much money. $50 per hour, the most expensive being $156 an hour before overtime. One nurse was paid around $20,000 for a single week to work in these shelters. Good God. There are people who don't make $20,000 in a year. Oh, man. The same nurse made $16,536 for 7 days of work in April. I want to work 1 week and make $16,536. It doesn't pay to be honest, folks. It does not pay to be honest. It really doesn't. Although I don't know that she didn't. I mean, if somebody offered me that pay and I was just doing a basic job, I'd probably take it. You know what I mean? If I'm not doing anything shady, sure. That's the city of Chicago's fault that kind of money's being paid out for nothing, for absolutely nothing. And Cruising says, how bad did the broken leg set you back? Oh God. Just a couple $100. But what are you going to do? Again, I'm lucky enough anyways, because I do have I do get vouchers from Halo House, which is a dog shelter. I get vouchers from them for the spaying and neutering and for shots and things like that. And the 3 kittens, they were rehomed immediately. And we were thinking about rehoming Granny Smith, but again, her elbow's broken. her elbow is broken, but they elected not to put her in a cast. But at the same time, I feel really bad about keeping her in a cage because they just want her in a small cage with a litter box for 2 months, and I'm like, I don't know about that. That's just not right. So we've got her in a room where she can't jump up on anything for now. As we move along here, still talking about strikes. And you know, of course, ladies and gentlemen, that you had CVS was striking, pharmacies, the CVS pharmacists were striking. And then because of that, the Walgreens pharmacists are on strike because they say, yeah, we want more money too. So then now Rite Aid is filing for bankruptcy. So there's another pharmacy getting beat. And never let a good opportunity go to waste. I had mentioned this a few days ago, but I completely forgot to look it up. Amazon, right on time. Save time, save money, and stay healthy. More ways to spend less. And what this basically is their official advertisement. Most insurance plans accepted. 80% off your prescriptions. Get door delivery, some in most cases same day delivery, because they've been doing a pilot program, Amazon, for a couple of years, testing Amazon Pharmacy. And right the same day that Walgreens also went on strike, Walgreens jumped in on the pharmacy strike, because remember, it's the pharmacists that are striking, not the regular Walgreens employees. Right when that happened, Amazon got off the pilot program and went full national with the online prescriptions. And they said, guess what? You don't need to go to the pharmacy. And guess what? Most people would probably prefer to do this than deal with Walgreens or Rite Aid or CVS or any of the other ones. It's cheaper. It's more convenient. You don't have to talk to anybody. They'll bring it right to your door. Oh man. And it's brilliant on the part of Amazon. And it's a shame that because everybody's on strike and they're doing it in Canada too. And they're killing the middle class jobs. They're killing the middle class jobs. You can be replaced, and this is proof. So yeah, we'll just have a bunch of technicians making less than a pharmacist, working in a pharmacy warehouse, shoveling pills and putting a label on them and mailing them. Why not? Monkey says, last week I knew Job Corps was mentioned. I've noticed public schools don't even mention them along with the trades. No, they don't talk about Job Corps. But again, public school wants to keep you in public school because they get paid per student. If there's a butt in the seat, they get paid. If they tell you as a parent, hey, Job Corps might be a good option, they're going to take their kid out of school and send them to Job Corps if the kid wants to go, if they think they're a good candidate, if they think they're a good fit, and then they lose a check. They lose that kid. So why would they tell you to do something that's going to take money out of the public school's pocket? But yeah, Job Corps, in my opinion, it's a good program. I've seen good results from it, including my own kid. Fluke Man says hotels are to blame for housing illegals. I know we're on hard times, but no way they would have allowed them to stay in the building if just one illegal passed a direct threat to the hotel's owner. And Chris says, and yet Amazon offering digital savings for accepting later deliveries on items. Yeah, but there you go. I mean, again, that's a great opportunity. It's smart on the part of Amazon. I don't like it, but it's really smart on the part of Amazon to do that. Personally, I would prefer, even if it cost a little bit more, and odds are in most circumstances it wouldn't, because most drugs cost about the same amount no matter where you get them, to support a local mom and pop pharmacy. That's what I would prefer to see. But people want cheap and convenient instead of personal. And they get sucked into the idea of these large operations, Amazon being one of the biggest now, funny enough. Semper Fi says local news just talked pharmacies in New York. Apparently, insurance companies are now dictating what pharmacy you can use and whether they will honor the prescription or force a generic. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Now, here's one for you that I think will be kind of interesting. And this comes from The Hill. It says Americans support mandatory national service. Yeah, sure they do. It says Americans agree on very little. That is why the results of a recent poll about mandatory national service were both surprising and encouraging. It turns out that more than 2/3 of Americans support a program of mandatory national service for all 18 to 22-year-olds. I know this because I recently sponsored a survey on the subject. I've been interested in national service for many years and learned a while back that people have a hard time reacting to the idea until presented with a concrete description of a plan, even at its sketchiest form. Starting about 5 years ago, I crafted a description of a hypothetical mandatory national program and commissioned a reputable nonpartisan polling company to field a survey. The program description and question posed was this: would you support or oppose the following proposal? All citizens and permanent residents, green card holders, will be required to participate in an 18-month national service program. Services can be started anytime between an individual's 18th and 22nd birthday. Service shall include healthcare assistance, infrastructure, environmental repair, early childhood education programs, elder care assistance, or military service. Participation in the military option shall be voluntary. National service participants shall receive a free communal room and board and a subsequent allowance. Basically, slavery for the state. Jumping down here, it says that it was a Roper poll, and I clicked on to Roper and I went to their website because I like to look at these numbers. I can't find the specific survey. Roper's got a ton of crap. I can't find this one. I looked. I'll look again because I'm willing to bet they only interviewed like 800 people. But according to this, more than 75% of all people aged 18 to 24 said that they would agree with basically being conscripted into volunteerism. Basically, this is the kind of stuff, picking up trash on the side of the road, babysitting elderly folks, stuff like this is the kind of crap that you have to do when you're doing community service, when you're ordered by the court. Only in this instance, the state would conscript you. Kind of like in a lot of other countries, you must join the military for 2 years when you turn 18, that kind of thing. But this is an idea where they want to conscript people age 18 to 22 to do volunteer work and live basically in a hostel for 18 months of their life. Work for free, essentially, for the state. Helter says it's hard to convince young men to fight for a society that's been shitting on them and that has told them how unnecessary they were their entire life. Yeah, you're talking about conscription. It's hard also when they know that they're being lied to constantly, but they have to play along and pretend like they don't understand that. Monkey says, I heard from a friend in Canada that in public schools, you're forced to do some community service to graduate. And Nature Nerd says, soon the interest of the national U.S. debt payment will be more than the U.S. military spending. They keep kicking the can down the road. I wonder which president will get all the blame when the shit hits the fan. Blame Jefferson. Isn't he the one that started the national debt? Dragon says anything that's mandatory isn't good. It takes away people's ability to exercise their free will, which is one of the main aspects that makes us human. Because again, I'm willing to bet that they only interviewed like 800 to 1,000 cherry-picked, hand-picked individuals in an online forum, in an online survey. And that's supposed to represent the entire country. You know how that works. And then Helter said mandatory national service is nothing more than forced labor. which is in most countries paid with wages that are not even enough to buy food. And Chris says, thank you for the video. You're welcome. I try. As I get ready to wrap things up, this is a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea to be conscripted into service for anything. That is not volunteerism. Mandatory. And one more here, preparedness as national service never really works. People dodging the system, the sick, lame, and lazy, the ones that do actually join never really want to be there, and they're counterproductive. Absolutely. Again, you're watching Coffee Talk. This is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube. You can find me on either channel, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter or Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 and Friday at noon, and that is Eastern Standard Time. And with that, I will go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks to everyone who was able to join us this afternoon. I hope you got something out of the conversation. And of course, we will do this again tomorrow. So have a good rest of your day.